What's up, everybody? Welcome to No BS, the culture's #1 podcast for physical, mental, and financial health. As always, it's your boy Quez,
It's Todd.
Nick.
and we're back. We're back. So, for those of you who've been around with us for a while and been watching our stuff, it's kind of been a minute since we've been in the studio. Today, we're just going to kind of recap, what's been going on and where we are and moving forward and stuff like that. Um, So what actually happened? I myself was in a tragic car accident back in August of 2021 or 2022. Um, I got in a car accident leaving work one day. Got ejected out of the window and landed on a fence post and had some really serious injuries. So we kind of had to put the podcast and things on hold for a while, just working our way back up. Um, obviously me physically, but also all of us, mentally and dealing with the trauma as a group and as a unit and walking through it all together. And we're back and we're here now and we're ready to get started.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Now, I know as a lot of people probably would have, we both have a lot of questions for you about your experience, in all facets of what we talk about, mental, physical, financially. So if you can be as brutally honest as you can,
Open.
we're not going to hold our punches with the questions either.
Of course.
Yeah.
Bring it on, round one, fight.
So I'd say we'll start mental, all the mental issues that have come up. I know for me, when I first heard about it, when I was thinking like what I would be thinking if I was in your situation, the first thought that popped into my head was Marianne, my old lady.
Mm-hmm.
How was it for her? What did she do for you? How reliable was she? And have you talked to her about her feelings of all this and through all of this?
So Ashley's been phenomenal. She's really been, rock solid through all of this. Um, she has stepped up in a major way. Obviously there was the physical aspect of it, but even just caring for me mentally and helping me walk through. And we're by no means even near the end of the tunnel. Still a long road ahead. But just having somebody to talk to and to vent to and to open up and be emotional with. That's been such a blessing for me. Um, my mom as well. My mom's been there and always, answering the phone. Doesn't matter if she's at work. Like at this point, just if I call, she finds a way to answer.
Yeah.
Just because she knows that it might be in the middle of the day and something just hits me and I just need to get it out. And she's always been there for me. Ashley's been there for me. They've both been wonderful in helping me get through it all. And we'll dive into that a little bit, but it's definitely taken its toll on them as well.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine what my mom was going through when the police show up at her door and say that your son's been in a terrible accident. He's been
because they contacted her first, right?
They contacted her first. Let her know that I was being escorted to Vanderbilt. Actually, found out recently I'm not very happy with the way that they told her because basically what she told me was that the officer came to the door, told her what happened. I was in an accident. I was being escorted to Vanderbilt, and basically like, well, he was alive when I left him.
Wow.
So she kind of went in a panic mode.
Oh
there.
yeah, I would go in a panic mode.
man.
Yeah. So and then she gets in touch with Ashley, and they're both on the way to the hospital. And Ashley actually drove through the scene of the accident, getting to my mom's house. So that I know that was traumatic for her. Just trying to get through that, and the police were kind of had the road blocked off, and weren't trying to divert cars and in her panic, and she's, that's my boyfriend that was in that accident,
Yeah,
and
she's
I need
just
to get
looking
through.
at
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
this is the fastest way to get to where I
That
need to
had to
go.
been
And
pretty
yeah,
traumatizing.
Yeah,
so-
bro.
for
Like
her.
when she called, well, I called, texted her on Facebook and was like, "What happened?" Then she said, "Call me." Bro, she had said that and like she just got hysterical at first. I was like, "Oh man," like I couldn't understand her.
I
was
believe
like-
it.
I was like,
Probably
"Calm."
trying to hold
I
it
was like,
together.
I know I can't tell you to calm down, but you have to take a breath, like
Yeah.
to tell me what's going on. Is he okay? And all of that good stuff.
yeah,
So I know it was tough on him.
yeah, it was tough on both of them, and it's interesting how we respond to those kind of events. My
Mhm.
mom used to get on to me all the time about I need to do better cleaning the bathroom, and just kind of in her panic and a way of consoling herself, she went and cleaned the bathroom
cleaned the
and was like,
bathroom.
Right.
I'll take care of it for you. And so,
Right.
yeah, it's been tough on everybody involved and everybody close with us. And, you guys are my brothers, and I know you guys had your own ways of dealing with it and a lot of uncertainty, especially initially, and just what was going on. Is he going to be okay and stuff? So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
bro.
follow up on that. It's funny that you said what you just said. People say that when you go through hardships or hard times, your true friends show who
Mhm.
who they are. Did you find that to come true? Where some people you thought that like, I know I can count on this person turned up, and they were like not there, or on the flip side.
Um, yes and no. So I mean, the people that I expected to, they've found a way to get in touch with me. Nick got in touch with Ashley and was checking on me through her. You guys at Public House were checking on me. Um, the no side of it. So I actually lost. I have no idea what happened to my phone in the accident. So
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
there's also that
look,
side of there
Niche
could have
been-
been people trying to get in touch with me, and
That you
I
just
don't.
didn't
Yeah,
know
I had
about.
to replace my phone and just don't know what happened after
You
that.
know what's
so.
crazy? Me being stupid. As soon as I heard, I called that number like he was gonna have it though. I was like, wait, no, that ain't the route, bro. Look,
Yeah. So I mean, I'm sure there's people out there that tried to check in and make sure I was all right, and I posted something on Facebook just for all those people. Hey, my phone's somewhere in a field somewhere or destroyed. I don't really know what happened. So if you tried to reach out to me and I didn't get back to you, I appreciate it. And
But that's why.
Mhm.
but I mean, my core circle, I've always my inner core, I've always kept that circle pretty small. So.
Small but tight.
Yeah, you too.
Mhm.
My best friend Denzel and family. I knew that they were
Yeah.
one way or another they were going to get in touch with me. And,
Yeah,
I mean, all of you did. So
Yeah,
yes,
that's
sir.
What about your kids? What did you have you talked to them about it, about what happened, or
Yeah, what questions have they asked you about?
yeah.
yeah. So I talked to the kids. I didn't go into super detail. But
Not gonna
just
tell them you got a poster.
Yeah. But let them know that Dad was in a very serious accident, and it was gonna take some time for us all to work through it.
Mhm.
I mean, they're all young. My oldest just turned 10, so they took it in stride. I think I don't because they didn't know the extent of it. I don't think the accident in and of itself is kind of the hard part for them. The hard part for them is just going through the recovery process. Um, So even to this day, I still can't move this arm, and just loss of mobility and loss of being able to get around and take them places and do things with them. Um, my youngest, who turned 4 recently, um, she probably took that part the hardest
Mhm.
because she just didn't understand. I think she took it personal, like, why isn't Daddy playing with me anymore?
Right.
Why don't you do things? And at one point, when I first had the accident, she vocalized it, and she was just confused, and she was like, "You care more about your broken arm than you care about me," and that
That had to be
that
tough to
hurt.
her.
That hurt.
Yeah.
that hurt. I know she was hurting, but just as a dad to hear that,
It hurt.
You know, I
Just
cried.
'cause she was hurting.
Yeah.
I believe it. I would too.
Yeah. So I
Shit, I'm
mean,
about ready to cry now.
Yeah, no, for real.
yeah. I mean, and that's the one thing that I want to make sure that people know is that when you go through something like that, like the tears are okay. And I think a lot of us, especially men, we're so focused on being strong and stuff like that. And through this process, I have cried more than I've ever cried in my entire life. And not even just from the physical pain, but the mental anguish and everything that's come since then. And I hope that through our podcast and sitting here talking about it, people understand that that's okay, and it's good to let those emotions out.
Helps you heal too.
Right.
It definitely helps you heal. Yeah.
So, what would you say is your motivation to keep pushing though? And not dwell on the fact that you was in a car accident.
My family, my kids, 100% without a doubt. My family and my kids, Ashley, my mom, and getting back to taking care of them and all that kind of stuff. My biggest motivation and also my biggest source of pain. Um, so I think that it's drilled into our heads so much growing up as men that we're the financial providers and stuff like that, and we take care of the family, and
Mhm.
you're the one that wrestles with the children and all that kind of stuff that we do as men to take care of our family. And when all that gets stripped away from you, um, you really feel like your identity is gone.
Yeah.
And so I've had to check myself into therapy and seek help, and just because I was drowning, at one point I didn't know who I was. I didn't know like why am I still here. Wished I hadn't made it at a certain point, just because I didn't know how to come back from this. I didn't know how to move forward. If I can't do what growing up I thought made me a man and made me a provider for my family, then what do I do?
Yeah. What's the point?
Yeah, so what's the point? And I beat up on myself a lot. Um, but then at the same time, same that same family that you feel like you have to support, you look at them and you also understand that they're your reason to keep fighting. They're your reason to figure out a way.
Yeah.
So every day, I wake up and I look at my children and I'm so thankful for them, and that, I was blessed to still have time with them, and that, it didn't all end. And that's why I keep pushing. That's why I fight so hard to find a way to make it through. To get in the studio, we want to impact the youth and the next generation and people who have been through similar stories to us. But also for each of us, this is something that we're giving to our family. This is us taking a step to move forward in our own lives so that we also bring our families with us. So yeah, that's my biggest inspiration.
Everybody's
it.
got to have a rock.
I dig it.
Yeah.
Hey man, so a lot of what you're talking about, right? That you're saying how you went to, you went to therapy and you were feeling a lot of these feelings. Um, would you say that as men, it's really difficult when you're that provider, you're that comfort giver for your kids, you're a source of entertainment. Would you say that your identity as a man is heavily wrapped in to what you provide for others? And and that's a big thing a lot of men get lost in, is that that's what we're worth. We're worth what we produce and what we give. And it's really difficult for men in a lot of situations, I would say, and maybe you're experiencing this, but how you we automatically assume as men that our the love that we get from people is conditional.
Mm-hmm.
And it's scary sometimes, because sometimes we realize it is, and then other times it's even harder to realize it isn't. It's not, like there's no, it's, we are loved unconditionally. And then we feel like, but I'm not doing anything to earn this anymore. That's a
Yeah.
mind fucking in itself, right?
Yes,
You
sir.
feel like you
Oh,
just
without
don't
a doubt.
deserve it.
Yeah,
Right.
without a doubt. Yeah, it's definitely like so much of, as men, our value is placed into what we bring to the table,
Mhm.
whether it be, financially, or, when we were our first couple episodes, I mentioned how I was helping coach my son's football team.
Mhm.
My ability to do that, even though, I was there for my children, I was there for my family, and, I made it through alive. That's all that they care about.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But to me, I almost felt valueless,
Yeah.
just because I wasn't bringing anything to the table.
Yeah.
I'm not providing financially. I'm not lifting my little girl up,
Yeah.
giving her kisses, tossing her into the sky.
Mhm.
You know, she doesn't care about all of that stuff so much as just the fact that I'm there being her daddy. But
Yeah.
for me, it's more of an internal thing, and how we value ourselves. That I felt like I wasn't being a good father anymore,
Yeah.
because I wasn't. I'm not at work. I don't have a paycheck anymore. I can't do certain things, even household chores.
And that's where we as men have to we have to learn. And I think that, unfortunately, I think it's too late for some of us, but I think we have to start teaching our sons,
Mhm.
the younger generation, that you just, with a heartbeat and breath in your lungs, you're enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everything else is bonus. And if you, just with a heartbeat and lungs, aren't valued by the people, it's not you. That's on them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That they're not. If people only value you for what you do, it's an issue with them. It's and the sad part is, I feel like a lot of men, like in your situation, and I've been there too, even recently, where even with my own kids, I realized, like, when money got tight, suddenly, kids aren't coming and giving me hugs in the morning anymore.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's like, well, what's this about? And it's just realizing the training that that maybe that they've been given by the
Mhm.
dynamic that I created.
Mhm.
So it's
Mhm.
like, I think that part of this No BS podcast that you guys have here, I think that us as men have to recognize, in ourselves, that that sometimes we set those same standards that hurt us too.
Oh
You
yeah.
know,
Yeah, you're right, and especially when it comes to trying to teach, one of the biggest things that we will have to get past is by actually knowing that ourselves and
Mhm.
showing it to them rather than just telling them. Because if you tell something to a kid all day and then show them the opposite, they're gonna do the opposite, not
Mhm.
what you told them to do, and that's gonna
Actions
be
speak loud, bro.
yeah, and that's gonna be I think a problem for me at least, where just as you said, that's what I offer. I've got all this to offer, and that's what makes me a man. So it's
Mhm.
going to
Yeah.
be hard for me to get past that.
Yeah. I mean, to both of you guys' point. So an example would be, when the holiday season started approaching, and
Mhm.
we all tell our kids that Christmas isn't about the gifts and
Yeah,
Mhm.
stuff like that. It's
and then
about more
it
to it, and giving to others and everything. And at a certain point, like, I was so distraught over not working at Christmas time, and my kids' Christmas is going to be terrible,
Right.
and because
not
I
going to get
can't
as many
afford to get,
presents
I
as
can't
they
do that.
do.
The same thing that I did last year, and blah blah blah. And like you said, you have to at some point realize, through all my panic, what am I teaching my children? Even though I sit there and tell them all the time that Christmas is not about the
Mhm.
presents, I'm teaching them through how frustrated I am, and
Uh-huh.
how distraught I am over not being able to
Able
give
to
them
provide
presents,
that.
that maybe it is about the presents.
Yeah, yeah,
So, we this past holiday, it was a reality check for all of us, and I think, even though that they didn't get nearly as much and nearly as quality things as they're probably used to,
hmm
at the same time, I feel like this could very well have been the most meaningful Christmas that they've ever had, just because,
Mhm.
once
your time
we
too, bro.
realized that we had to take the focus away from that, we were able to actually make it about something else
Right.
and not just say that it was about
Make
something
Christmas
else.
Christmas.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I like it. I can dig it.
Well,
Hashtag dad life.
yeah, right.
Movement. Hey, bro, dads matter.
I was gonna say that's I don't really have any more about mentality, whatever the word is. Do you have any questions that are along those lines?
Mentally, I mean, other than you explained how you felt, but going back to when you got to the hospital and you realized and you was awake, what crossed your mind? Like, did you know what happened?
No. So let's see. This accident happened on a Friday night. It was like maybe around midnight-ish, so late Friday night, early Saturday morning. I'd say my next cognitive memory is probably that following Tuesday. Um, and I mean, I was in and out in the hospital, so a lot of it's a blur. But I remember on Tuesday, and that's probably my only memory of that Tuesday is, opening my eyes. I think I was already awake, but just opening my eyes and looking over and just where am I?
Mm.
And they told me, they were like, you're at Vanderbilt. You were in a traumatic accident. We need you to, take it easy, rest a little bit, try to eat something. And I was argumentative at first. I wasn't in an accident.
I would have remembered that.
Yeah. And so like that's mostly what I remember from that day. And then as time progressed, and I still just didn't quite understand. So even for the next couple days, they would come in and you broke your arm. And my arm's not broken, and it's in a cast. But,
Yeah. But it's not broken.
yeah, I was like, but it's not broken. There's no way my arm's
Move it.
broken.
Oh,
The doctors told me, they were like, you can't stand up, and I tried to. My mom hates me so much for this. They told me I can't stand up because my injuries and the medicine that I was on, and my dumb ass tried to stand up anyway.
This dude said, "Watch me."
Watch me.
I was straight to
hard-headed,
the
bro.
So
Water's not wet, bro.
yeah, I mean, it was everything was very murky. It was very unclear, and then once I started to come to and understand that I actually was in an accident, and this is what's going on, and these are the injuries I had, and I started trying to think back to remember anything about the accident, and I had injuries to my head, so I had to have 19-ish or so staples in my head. And I don't know if the head injury is why, or maybe just the shock and the trauma, but I couldn't remember anything. I couldn't remember that entire day. So I got up and went to work, took my kids to school, have no memory of any of that, and had to piece together the story from other accounts.
7 different
Yeah,
sources.
yeah. So I call Ashley, and did I take the kids to school that morning, or did you take them? You took the kids to school, and what time did my shift start? Started at 11. Well, what did I do in between 8 and 11?
Yeah.
It's
Right.
it's very unclear. So even to this day, I don't have a lot of memory. But once it did finally register and everything, it was kind of overwhelming.
Right. I can tell you, bro. We got whooped at work. We was busy, dog. I tell you, all day long,
Yeah.
all day long.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just just kind of confusing and terrifying, and not knowing quite what's going on or what happened, and even to this day, like not knowing what happened and what's going on. And another thing, when I was at the hospital, they're telling me, you got an accident, blah blah blah, your arm's broken, you broke some ribs, and and you have COVID too. And I was like, what, this has to be a dream. Like,
Everything's going
yeah,
on.
I was
man,
like, there's
staying
no
on
way
top.
this is
There you
this is
go.
serious. Like,
Oh, that's
I
I
got
ain't gonna
all
lie.
this going on, and I got
And I
COVID
got
too.
COVID.
Wow.
So
Icing on the cake, huh?
yeah, yeah. So that just topped it off. So yeah, I was, I think I was in denial for a little bit, and definitely, if I could have moved better, I would have been pinching myself and trying
Please
to wake
wake
myself up.
Please
Yeah,
wake up.
yeah.
I hate that feeling. I've been in places where that's all I'm praying for. Like,
Mhm.
please let me wake up tomorrow and this not be a thing. So I
Right.
feel that.
Yeah.
Right,
tough
it's a
spot.
nightmare. You
Yes.
can't wake up from.
Yes.
On a lighter note, though, I'm gonna tell you, whoever did your staples in your head, bro, look, you should go smack them or kiss them, or, bro, they gave you a George Jefferson, bro. I'm gonna be honest with you, bro. Look, they had the George
Yeah.
Jefferson going on when you FaceTimed us, bro. I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh man.
it was
Yeah,
looking
my
rough,
head was all
man.
messed up and missing hair and stuff.
Man, I
and-
said we
Looked
moving
like a
on
clown,
up, bro.
dude,
I
had
was
the
like,
top part right off.
"Jeez, bro."
So the funny thing about that, they told it didn't even register to me. They told me like you had to get staples in your head and stuff, and it just didn't, like, my hair and everything didn't register to me until I was leaving the hospital, and I'm in a wheelchair and the nurse is pushing me out to where Ashley is with the car. And the nurse was like, "Well, I mean, if they were gonna shave your head and put staples in, they could have done it better than that."
That's what I'm saying.
And I'm like,
Hey,
My
bro,
hair.
they could have cut it all off, bro. They just left
That's
you
what
with the
they shoulda
sides,
done. They
bro.
shoulda
I was
just
like,
gotten it all gone.
bro.
yeah. So definitely interesting. One thing I did want to ask you guys was, we talked about how it was for me, like receiving the news and stuff. How was it for you guys receiving the news?
Well, me personally, like when our GM Ryan came back and was like, "Have y'all talked to Quiz?" I'm like, "Nah." Well, his girl just called and said he was in a car accident. And the crazy thing is, me and Chris was just talking because it was raining that day, pouring down. And I knew you had to go coach football. I said, "Bro, Quiz is gonna be mad when he come in here. Boy, he gonna be soaking wet all morning." And then literally 5 minutes later, he comes around and tells us, and it hit, I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Okay, hold on." So I get the fumbling. I call that number, call your phone. I'm like, "Yeah, he ain't got this phone." I don't know why I did. It went straight to voicemail, right? So I got on Facebook, hit Ashley, then she called. And she told me, and at first I couldn't take it. Like, I was like, "Bruh, nah, that didn't really happen." And to the extent we didn't know what was going on, other than that you had been in a car accident. And then once we told our chef, we ain't gonna name no names, but he was like, "Oh, I mean, he'll be back. He'll be back next week." Bruh, I don't think so, bro. He's
He
like, "Yeah,
was-
man, he just broke
he
his arm.
was-
He'll be fine."
Yeah,
I
he
was
said you
like,
could be in there with one
bro.
arm flipping burgers. I
I'm like, I was like,
no,
"No, cuz
that ain't it.
it's not that easy, bro." And then starting to get all the details, Ashley would update me every day. And she would tell me little by little, "You broke your ribs. You broke your shoulder blade." And I'm starting to realize, like, what? Like, it's starting to hit me like, this was very bad. It wasn't just no normal, bro, just went to sleep, ran off the road, and that was it. Like, it was more of like, bro, you could have died out there if it went any other way. And that kind of shook me a little bit. And my significant other, Renisa, she was like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Not really," because I'm thinking about you. Was like, bro, going through a whole lot, and he didn't ask for this. You know what I'm saying? So, and I couldn't help you. I couldn't call and physically talk to you at the time anyway. So I was like, man, I can't go up there. Like you said, you had COVID and
Yeah, they weren't letting
nobody
yeah,
in but like
nobody.
one person a day and this and that. I'm like, bro, I need to go physically touch, bro, make sure you're okay. Like, this is somebody I talk to Quiz every day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's more of, "Hey, Ty, you talk to Quiz?" No, I have. I just got off the phone with him more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, and for me, can't call you and this and them, like, I could only imagine how you was feeling, and that shit was hurting my soul. You feel me? So that's how it felt when I got the news.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just sitting in the same boat. I think you had called me.
Mm-hmm.
Or no,
No, you came to work
I came in
soon
that
as,
day.
like,
Yeah,
20
it
minutes
was-
later.
Yeah, 20 minutes after Ryan came back and asked. That's when I came into work and heard about it, and pretty much immediately after, I went and got with Ryan Um, and we contacted Frank about setting up the Giving Kitchen thing for you.
Mhm.
Because being a provider, that's what you think about. How is he going to pay his bills? Like what do you do? So if for people who are listening, the Giving Kitchen's a great. We'll put a link up to it at the end. It's a really great program that helps restaurant industry workers. So if you go through something like Quez went through, bad wreck, if you get laid off or house catches fire, they will help financially with your situation. It's just a simple application process that you go through, and that's what we set up for Quez, because we're thinking, number one, that's hell, just the physicality of it, that you're going through hell, then you pile on top of it finances. So I was, both Ryan and I, we talked about it, and it's something to easily drown in and lose yourself. I mean, as you already talked about with us. So we both, hearts and prayers went out to you as soon as we heard about it, because just as he said, it was rough to hear, especially as all the updates were coming in, because over your head, or over our head, we still didn't really know
The extent.
what was going on, and like how, as he said, the extent of how bad it was. I mean, we've been getting reassurance, and from you whenever you call and talk about how it's been progressing and whatnot, but it's never good news to hear one of your boys is going through anything remotely close to that. But speaking of the physicality of it, you've been mentioning some things that had gone wrong. What all had happened? What was all broken? You're walking in here with the pimp walk, but I imagine that's not the new walk for you.
Pip hand strong, huh?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So rundown of all the injuries. So I broke 7 bones. So actual backtrack. We'll start with what actually happened. So as I mentioned earlier, I got ejected. I ran off the road somehow. Don't know what caused it or anything like that. I hit a electrical fence, and I guess that's what catapulted me out of the window. Um, and had a fence post impale through my left arm. Um, so obviously broke the humerus bone in this arm. Completely cut in half the muscles, my bicep muscles right there. Damaged my tricep muscles. Cut in half whatever arteries right there, the brachial artery, I think, or something like that. That artery was severed in half. Significant nerve damage. I think that's it for the arm. I was talking to the surgeon who kind of captained all the repair, my orthopedic trauma surgeon, and he said basically when I arrived at the hospital, it was the skin on one side and the skin on the other side, and everything in the middle was just kind of left on the fence post. So it wasn't even just just my arm was broken, but a sizable chunk of that bone was gone. The muscle tissue was gone. A section of the nerve was gone. A section of the artery was gone. All of that, just the fence went through and took it all with it. So that was this arm. My head, my scalp was torn up. Honestly, I don't even really know what all happened on my head. Besides that, I had a bunch of staples in there.
Your mom sent the text and said it was like a flap, bro.
Yeah.
Scalped.
So they said my scalp just completely came off. So they did staples to repair all of that. On my right side, let's see, I broke my shoulder blade. I broke 2 ribs. I broke 3 vertebrae in my spine, towards the top of my spine. Um, and then just, the internal damage, um, bruising on my lungs, my liver, my kidneys, um, all had significant bruising on them. Um, and yeah, I think that was mostly it. Um, so pretty significant damage in different parts of my body. Up top, at least, I was blessed that the bottom portion of my body was okay initially.
Intact.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So my legs were still fine, my feet were fine. Nothing really happened there. Um, Fast forward to December, December 28th, I had to have surgery. So the portion of my humerus where it was broken and the bone was missing, they tried their best to put it back together and set it in a way that it would grow back together and heal. They said there was very, very minimal contact between the two bone fragments. Um, and so they gave it a couple months, so about 4 months, to try to see if there was going to be any healing or anything like that. After 4 months, there wasn't any. So they had to do what's called a bone graft, which is where they harvest bone matter from a different part of your body and place it into that injured part and kind of help to kickstart the healing process. So they had to go in. They went in by my knee and got bone matter from my femur, and basically cut open the side of my knee, took a chisel in and just chiseled out some of the bone matter and packed it into my arm. So they used my bone matter as well as some like synthetic bone, created bone, and just combined them and packed it in there. And we're hoping that that was successful. Still got a couple weeks to go before we know if it was really successful or not. But we're praying that that was successful. And then as far as the nerve damage and muscle damage, that's just a waiting game. There's a possibility that I may have to get what's called a tendon transfer.
Mhm.
So just basically where all the nerve damage in my arm happened and um, the muscles aren't firing, they'll take some healthy, similar to the bone graft, take some healthy from somewhere else in my body and put it back in there. The problem with that is that you don't get full mobility back with that. So they're really just being patient and taking their time and seeing if it can come back on its own. You'll get a lot more recovery than if they have to surgically, move
Right.
stuff around and make it to where you have mobility. So yeah, that's all
My
the.
arm hurt, dog.
No, man.
I would have
no,
told
yeah,
him cut
my
mine
body
off,
hurts.
bro.
Yeah, just get rid of it.
Oh man, it's time at times where that's what you're thinking, and you're like, at this point, it's not necessarily that I wear a cast anymore.
Mhm.
I had a cast from pretty much my shoulder all the way down to my hand for a few weeks. Got to the point where I no longer need the cast. Everything is just held together by plates inside of my arm and stuff
Do
like
you need a
that.
sling though?
Um,
Are you supposed to wear it and you just don't?
Yeah.
No. I have a sling. I wear it occasionally, like just when my arm is just tired.
Yeah.
But I mean, just especially with the time frame and how long it could take, then having a sling constantly can just cause more damage. So
Right.
Mhm.
I don't wear it constantly.
Can you feel stuff?
In certain parts of my arm, so along the inside of the elbow and kind of wrapping around the front of my forearm into the back of my hands is the part that I can't feel. So I can feel like the back part of my arm, because I guess that whatever nerve controls that side
That's
isn't
still
damaged
intact.
as much. Yeah. But this part along the inside of my arm and the back of my forearm um, is just numb.
Yeah.
Which, interesting fact, I didn't know until I got this injury that if you get an itch in one of those places that's still numb, you can still feel the itch.
Oh man.
Can you
But when you scratch it, you can't feel yourself scratching, so it just doesn't give you any
Oh.
relief. So it's just sitting there bothering you.
Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible.
That's when I would have told him cut it off.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't
so
deal
those are
with
those
that one,
moments I'm
dog.
like, just take the arm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Shoot. That's a lot. Financially, what? That's got to be a high bill. Do you have insurance that covers it?
So I have insurance. Public House, the company you guys work for and that I was working for when I had the accident. Um,
Hashtag
you know,
bring back quiz.
I can't thank them enough. Just because I've worked for this company previously, and I was at Marguerite. I left and went and was the executive chef at Margaritaville, um, and just kind of got tired of downtown Nashville, the Broadway scene, and everything. So I came back to this company. I had been salary for like 6 days
Yeah, I think
when
it
I
was
had my
5 or
accident.
6, yeah.
So just I mean, even all the insurance paperwork hadn't even all the way been finalized, and they worked with me on that part, made sure that they got me into their insurance as quick as possible, um, and then just carry that insurance for me, which was a huge blessing. So they gave me the initial 12 weeks of FMLA. That's pretty standard. Once my 12 weeks were up, I wasn't getting as much healing, and there was still a lot of risk to me returning to work and stuff like that. Um, they took it upon themselves. They absolutely by no means had to, but they took it upon themselves to extend my leave of absence and carry me on their insurance for a few more months. And it expires at the end of January, which is completely understandable. They weren't going to be able to carry me indefinitely, and so
Right.
there's still a lot of questions about my healing process and if it's safe for me to return to work or not. But just giving me that extra time to work through and find insurance, and I just recently got onto TennCare, which is going to help me with the rest of my bills as far as medically moving forward. But I wouldn't have even had the time to go through that process and get myself applied and get approved and all that stuff if they hadn't carried me so long on their insurance. So
Yeah.
extremely grateful for everybody at Front Street.
Yeah.
Or I'm sorry, at Public House. That's their old name.
Yeah, yeah.
OG.
R.I.P.
But yeah, they've been a blessing. As far as my bills, initially there was a GoFundMe, and my kids' school kind of headlined that, and they were able to raise a little bit of money to help me um, pay off some of my bills and help with medical expenses and stuff like that. Um, it was a blessing in disguise, when I filed my income taxes and the IRS was having delays and everything, and it took so long for me to get my income tax return. And all summer, I was frustrated and wondering, what's going on, what's taking so long for my income tax return. Well, turns out I get in an accident, and leaving the hospital was like a week after I left the hospital, and I got an email that said that your return has been processed and your payment's on the way. So, all of that worked out, and was able to give me a little bit of a cushion to work with. So actually, it just hit me. Another thing that happened when I was in the accident, that day at work was payday, of course, and we get paper checks there. And so took it to the bank, cashed the paper check, had it, by all accounts, had it in my pocket when I left work. Got to the hospital, and they were like, yeah, you weren't brought in with any money. So, got back to the scene, or my mom went to the scene and kind of searched around, and she was kind of gathering all my belongings from where they were spread out everywhere, and nothing was found at the scene. And similar to my phone, just no idea what happened to it. I don't know if it, maybe got scattered in a different area just because of the distance for how far the car traveled after impact. So yeah, just got a paycheck and that went missing. My phone went missing, and none of this stuff was ever
Man.
recovered. So thankful for people like Public House and my kids' school, New Hope Academy, that helped me out a lot. My godparents and their church, did a bunch to raise money and help us, get through it. And um, from there it was just on me, just doing my due diligence and taking what I had and making it spread just as far as possible.
Right.
So, I didn't know initially that 5 going on 6 months later, I'd still be out of work. I was boneheaded. And I was like, oh, I'm pushed through. I'm be back to work in no time. And I think part of that was just part of that identity crisis.
Yeah.
Just
You
work
have
was
to.
all I knew. So one way or another, I was going to get back to work. And as the process drug on, and I was understanding the severity of it better, and just healing wasn't happening as fast as I would like to see, and stuff like that. And we'll see what the future holds. But
Well, I tell you this, bro, you far way better with one arm and a pimp walk than person we got now. Just saying, hashtag bring Quez back. I be repping every day at work. I scream it.
Right?
Oh yeah, love to get back in and just get back to working and get to providing for myself and stuff like that. I do understand the liability side of it. Just having somebody who's had a broken arm, and if I tripped and fell at work, it's no one wants to
re-break
be
it
held.
again.
Yeah, no one
Man,
wants
we'll
to be
get
held
you one of these
responsible for
chairs,
that.
bro.
So,
We ain't, look, we let you ride around.
yeah. So financially, it's taken a toll. But at the same time, that was my opportunity to really dive in and put to practice, some of the stuff that we talked about discussing on this podcast, and just making smarter choices.
Maybe it was a reason you went through it.
Oh yeah,
It's a reason why you still alive.
oh yeah, for sure. Making smarter choices, and um, not being irresponsible with our money. So, it's easy, even if your income isn't enough, to when people live beyond their means, when they live past the income that they're actually making. It's easy to do that when you have steady income. But
Yeah.
once the steady income gets taken away, then reality hits you. And, I by no means wasn't living far beyond what I was making. But, there were times where I was irresponsible with my money. And there was times where, I wasted some money here and wasted some money there. I could have been smarter. I could have made a better decision, and, got to that point where that's the only option.
Did you have any savings saved up? Do you have any right now?
I had a little bit, not as much as I would have liked to had. I had savings saved up at the beginning of 2022, and then just over the course of the year, this happened and that happened, and ended up spending more of my savings than I probably should have. And in retrospect, you think back and you're like, could I got away without spending that? Yeah, I probably could have. I grew accustomed to living a certain lifestyle. So when something happened, and I spent my savings when I felt like my lifestyle was threatened, not when my livelihood was threatened.
Yeah.
And so that was the difference that I learned after this. Like what are the important times to you work hard to build up all that money. You don't do it just to blow it. You do it
Yeah.
for these times.
You couldn't redefine what you think is an emergency.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, things that felt so important back then, all of a sudden, they weren't that important.
No.
So, yeah, just a lot of learning, and then just taking the opportunity. And this will kind of go back and forth between the financial and the mental. So, I was in a grief process for a while, and I was down for a while, and just felt like there was no hope and no point. Um, and then at certain point, you gotta push through. You gotta figure it out. I was on the phone with my uncle who had a tragic accident of his own, and broke his leg, and just we were talking about how each of us are gonna move forward, and the insight that he gave me. He was watching documentary on um, people with disabilities who go and do like triathlons and go mountain climbing and stuff. And he was like, it's all because of their mindset. It's easy to sit there and say that
What was me?
I lost part of my arm or I lost part of my leg. Like I can't do that, but these people prove to you that if you're diligent enough and you
Have the right
you
mindset,
have the
as you
right
said.
mindset, that you can still do amazing things.
Yeah.
And in our discussion, we were like, that grief process is important.
Got to go through the motions.
Yeah, you got to go through that process and take your time. And it's natural to feel down, but just don't live there for forever.
Yeah.
At some point, you got to wake up and, like Nike says, just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah. So once I came to that realization and got through that grief process, then, that's when, I started hitting you guys back up and, hey,
You was
let's,
ready to
let's
rock
jump
then.
on this.
Let's
Yeah,
go.
let's jump
Yeah.
on this podcast. We've got other business things that we're working on that we want to get started. And, I'm working hard towards those things. Partly because, it's me being in my Nike mode. Just do it. Possibly partly because, I don't have any income and I really need it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, I get that.
Obviously
good
that's going to
motivator.
motivate you.
It's a good motivator.
Yeah.
10 times, we were locked in and focused and doing this before, but, there were times that we could have been a little bit more locked in, but because we weren't at that point where, we felt like we were going to struggle, it was easier to take our time with certain stuff. I got to that point where I was like, I've got to succeed.
Yeah.
I have no option but to succeed. And so then I started, and the podcast is just one of many avenues. I, in the middle of the night, couldn't sleep one night. I filled out my FAFSA and started applying to schools. And I was like, I'm taking my ass back to college.
Yeah.
And, I've been there a couple times. And at the time, I wasn't in a place mentally where I probably should have been at college. I had other priorities and I knew that I wanted education and I wanted that knowledge. But I didn't prioritize it at the level that I needed to.
Right.
And, now it's a higher priority than it's ever been in my life.
Right.
Starting a business and being successful and what can I do to work from the ground up and make something happen, I'm at the ground now.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
You're at the point where all you've got is up and you got to figure out how to get there.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot to go through, between having to deal with the mental state of it, the physical state of it, and even financial. It's something that many people, it would break them, to be honest. For people who might be in that situation or something similar, how would you sum up all of your experiences and tell somebody in a phrase or a short word that would help them get through it on their own?
So I would start with, the mental side of it first, because I think that's the most important side of it. So when you suffer through any kind of tragedy, even if it's not a huge tragedy, even if it's just a setback, there's always going to be that mental aspect of it. And, it's always going to bring in the fears, the doubt, the worry, the shame, the guilt, whatever it is that you're going through, whatever emotions that brings, that's okay. And we started off in talking about just us as men and how we feel about certain things, and a lot of times we feel like emotions are not okay. Emotions are absolutely okay. Whatever those emotions are, whatever it is that you're feeling, that is okay. It is okay for you to feel that way. And we live in a society where a lot of times we feel like that's not the case, that it's not okay. but absolutely it is. You have every right to feel those emotions. But then, like I said, just don't live there for forever. You know, take your time, feel your emotions. Don't try to hide them because you hold them in. It's only going to get worse. So let them out. Feel your emotions. Just don't live there for forever. Don't live there permanently.
Mhm.
Um,
So embrace, accept, and
Embrace,
just do
accept. Yep, and just do it. On our Instagram post, you know, I shared something a couple weeks back that I'd have to look it up and find the quote, but basically it said that your life is your story.
Mhm.
And I've really taken a hold of that, you know, very, very strongly. Your life is your story. Write well and edit often.
Mhm.
So, what that means to me is that, you know, your life isn't always going to be perfect. Um, you know, when an author is sitting down writing a book, that bestseller book that they ended with is probably not what they started with.
Mhm.
You know, they started a story, they got through it, something happened, they made changes, it didn't come off the way they wanted it to. You know, they made changes again, sent it to an editor. They said, you know, we're not really feeling this part. They made changes again. Um, but it's your story. You're the one that gets to keep going back and rewriting your story. And I would encourage everybody just to do that often. Um, you know, whatever happens in your life, whatever may come up, whether it be a tragedy or setback, you know,
Mhm.
go back, use the eraser, cross it out, start over, keep writing, keep writing. The moment you stop writing your story is when it all
It's
comes to an
over.
end. As long as
Mhm.
you're continuing to write that story and as long as you're, you know, trying to make progress, then, you know, eventually you're going to get there.
I understand.
I
And if
love
you
it.
like more quotes like that, follow us on our Instagram. We post all sorts of quotes, you know, financial advice, you know, mental advice, or just quotes that you know really reach out to us. So give us a follow, like the ones that you like, and you know we'll reach out to you. We'll interact. Um, that about sums it up.
Yes, sir.
That's all we got for you. Do you got any more questions?
No, it's been great getting back in here.
It
You
has
know,
been
I'm so
great.
excited
Like
to get
riding a
back to
bike.
grinding.
Let's do it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, and all
Yeah,
that
we
being
back in that
said,
mode, so more content coming soon. Y'all just wait on it. It's coming. We're working harder than we've ever worked before. And what we got here, you know, it's going to be great, and we're excited to take you guys along the journey with us.
all right, and that's it. Y'all have a good time. Like, follow, and subscribe to our Instagram and all our socials, and reach out, and we'd love to have a chat with any ideas y'all got.